This is episode 367 of Jumble Think.
T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Jumble Think, where we interview dreamers, makers, innovators, and influencers all about their journey of turning dreams and ideas into reality. Along the way, we're going to share some tips on how you can turn your own dreams and ideas into reality too. Our guest on today's show is Adrienne Smith. More about Adrienne in a moment. Whether you're a new listener or a longtime fan, if you've never subscribed to Jumble Think, now's the time to do it. Head on over to wherever you listen to podcasts, search for Jumble Think, and click subscribe. To make it even easier, you can head on over to jumblethink.com where you'll find links to Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, and more. So head on over and subscribe to the show. Now let's join today's conversation. Hey there, friends. Welcome to Jumble Think. My name is Michael Woodward. I am your host, and I am so excited about today's conversation. It is with Adrienne Smith. Adrienne is the founder of Blitz Champs, a fun and educational football-themed card game that blends the excitement of football with critical math skills. A long-time football advocate and spokesman, Adrienne has been a wide receiver for the Boston Renegades since 2011. Orange is the New Black actress, and she is also an entrepreneur with a vision to help kids learn and promote women and girls in pro sports. This is a fascinating conversation. There's a lot that I learned in it, and I think you're going to have some really good takeaways for yourself too. So let's go ahead and join the conversation with today's guest, Adrienne Smith. Adrienne, thanks so much for joining us here on Jumble Think.
Thank you so much, Mike, for having me. I'm super pumped to be here.
Now, I mentioned you are blazing so many trails in different spaces. Women's football, actress, Orange is the New Black. You are an entrepreneur. You have a new company called Blitz Champs, which we're going to be talking about a lot of that and much, much more. First off, let's just kick it off, because it seems like football was the foundation of launching you into entrepreneurship, getting you into acting. That seems like the core beginning place. Is that right?
That's right. You hit the nail on the head with that, Mike. And according to my parents, my lifelong love and journey in football started when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
And apparently I had this teddy bear that my dad had brought back from one of his business trips. And when I was 3, my teddy bear and I happened to be the same size. It was a huge teddy bear. And even though he was a boy, I named him Ginger. So every weekend, Ginger and I used to sit and watch football together. And apparently I would place Ginger in front of the television and just run and tackle him over and over and over again. So from that point on, I have always been a fan of football. And when I was 7, my dad got me a football for Christmas, and he taught me how to throw a perfect spiral. But it wasn't until I became an adult and actually moved to New York for business school at Columbia, that's where I went, that I first learned about women playing tackle football professionally, like on teams in a league. And immediately my interest was piqued, and I tried out and I made the team. And ever since then, it has been a whirlwind of gold medals, championships, playing in different countries, meeting people from around the world, and finding this commonality of our love for football. It has been quite the journey, and I feel so blessed to have had parents that did not discount my interest in something because of my gender, and even further blessed to be born in a time where I wasn't prevented from achieving what I knew was in my heart due to my gender or race. So it's just been a blessing.
There's a lot to unpack there. You go to Columbia to go for business. We're probably around the same age. I'm not going to guess your age. I'm not going to ask you to tell me. If you want to, you're fair to do that. But, when we were growing up, I was born in 81. When I was growing up, women's sports was basically women's soccer. It was track and field. It was skating, ice skating of different kinds. When I was a child, I remember early on, the ice skating teams for women starting to pick up in the Olympics and everything like that. For you as a child growing up, we hear this conversation time and time again, seeing people like me on TV, whether it's race or gender. We hear that in our culture about like, I can identify and put myself in those shoes because I see someone else like that. You watch football on TV, and we've got to ask an important question now. Hopefully we can remain friends. Who are your teams?
Oh boy. Okay. So my number one team is the San Francisco 49ers.
I love that.
I have loved them from, just the golden age of the West Coast offense that Bill Walsh invented, where you have the Jerry Rices of the world, you have the Joe Montanas, and then it transferred over to Steve Young, where it was all about this open field, this run and gun style of play. And I became enamored with them.
Yeah.
Having lived in New York for quite a bit of time, I am also a firm supporter of my men in blue, the New York Giants.
Well, and I'll say this now, hopefully not offending anyone. Giants are so much better than the Jets. Let's just be honest.
I'm not laughing. That's not funny. But you're right, Mike.
Story I've never told. I'll share it real quick. Back in the early 2000s, before Candlestick was torn down, I did a big event out there. I was a part of the team putting on the event. And so I got to toss football on Candlestick Field before they tore it down, probably like 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
That was like epic, just to be on that field and go in the locker rooms. And yeah, I didn't get to play with any of the players. I am not a football player, never have been. Let's just be honest, I'll never be one. And so what an honor to be on that field. And Candlestick, magical place for football, and amazing team, the 49ers. So I can accept that. I'm an Eagles fan, but I love the 49ers too.
That's great. That's great. And a quick little anecdote for me, in 2011, so that Super Bowl, I think it was Super Bowl 50, if I'm remembering correctly, trying to remember those Roman numerals, that was in Dallas. So I had arranged for myself and 12 of my teammates from the 2010 U.S. Women's National Tackle Team. Mm-hmm. We had just come off winning a gold medal in 2010 over in Sweden. And so I had proposed to the NFL that we actually have some female coaches serve as coaches for the NFL Experience Week. Yeah. They do a bunch of Play 60 clinics there. And the NFL said, sure, yeah, that's great. We should start incorporating women into kind of the coaching ranks. And so I was happy to be out there, and I was able to meet Jerry Rice. And I literally was starstruck. I don't even think I said a word. I just was kind of staring at him. But he was so regal and just so amazing, and went out for a couple of routes. It was awesome. It was awesome.
What a dream come true. I can imagine as a 49ers fan, that's like the player for the 49ers legacy.
Yes. Yes.
We started this kind of train that we're on by talking about women in sports, and you don't go to college at Columbia and just try out for a team and get on a team. How did you cultivate your athletic ability when you didn't even know that this space existed? How did you become the athlete when you're like, I love football, but there isn't a space for me to be a football player right now? All of a sudden an opportunity opens up. You still have to be prepared. You have to be physically in shape. If I tried to walk on a football field, even if I was playing high school students, I would be slaughtered. You don't just go and perform at an elite level, which you do, just showing up and saying, here I am. So how did you prepare yourself for a role that you didn't even know existed?
That's such a beautiful question, Mike. And it's how can I address this? Let's see. To me, there's something. I'm a spiritual person, and I believe that there are things that can be embedded inside one's spirit that you yourself know exists. It's there, but the world might not be ready for it or be unable to recognize it. Mm. And I kid you not, when I was that little girl, when I was 3-4 years old, watching those men on television, something inside me said, that's my sport.
Wow.
I don't understand why, but I know that sport right there is the sport that I can be the best at.
Wow.
And that was just inside me. And all I could do at the time is I played pickup football with the boys in the neighborhood. I'm an only child, but I have a bunch of cousins. Like I have over 50 first cousins.
Wow.
And in my age range, there were a group of 5 brothers who were my cousins. And they taught me how to play. They taught me how to juke. Every summer I'd head out to Arkansas and we would play and I would learn from them. And then in high school, I did want to try out for the freshman football team, but my mom shut that down. She's like, no, you're not playing football. So I started playing basketball and I continued playing softball in high school. Then when I got to college, I played basketball. And after college, I actually worked in Japan and I played basketball overseas as well. So I've always been an athlete. I love team sports. I've always been in shape. I love competing. But it wasn't until I went to graduate school, I went to business school at Columbia, that I heard about women's tackle football.
Yeah.
And for me, I knew I had to try out. I knew I had to. I made the team, and honest to goodness, Mike, the first time I touched the football in a game, I scored.
Wow.
It was on a punt return. And I just remember, and as I'm running and juking and just heading towards the end zone, I almost wanted to shed a tear because I remembered 3-year-old, 4-year-old Adrienne who knew without knowing why, this was my best sport. And it proved to be true. And it's proving to be true, I should say.
So in 2011, you end up being on the Boston Renegades.
Yes.
This is a new space for women. So you're pioneering this with other players, with coaches, with an organization. You're creating a new league. And, we look at the XFL and what they have tried to do several times by reinventing the rules, by redesigning a sport to be the next level. As a visionary in this space, as a person that's putting your voice, your stamp, your identity on this, you dream about doing it, you get to do it. What is the vision you have for women's football as a player, as a forerunner in this space, as a competitor? Where do you want to see this go? What do you want to see happen to this space in women's football?
Another great question. So let me just correct a little bit of history here. Women have been playing tackle football for longer than the majority of people think. Back in the 70s, there was actually a 10-team league called the National Women's Football League.
Wow.
NWFL. Yeah, 10-team league, and it operated for about a decade.
Okay.
And some amazing athletes participated in that women's league. And unfortunately, as happened with women's soccer, let's say last decade, you had a league and it folded. So that's what happened to women's tackle back in the 70s. And then women's tackle tried to make another comeback in the 90s. And then here we are we're 2020 now. We're in the 2000s. And women's tackle is still trying to find its own lane and progress. At the moment, there are 2 major leagues in women's tackle. You have the WFA, the Women's Football Alliance, which is the league I play in with the Boston Renegades. And you have the WNFC, the Women's National Football Conference. And what I envision for women's football is a unified league. So where we are right now in women's tackle is where men's tackle was back in the 1960s, right? When you had the AFL and the NFL. And then finally they combined to create what we now know as just the National Football League.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do in the women's space, is to combine our efforts and create one league that has elite athletes with just phenomenal matches and just a great product that women, girls, boys, men can get behind and root for.
We can look at different sports. Women's soccer has in a lot of ways gotten a lot of traction over the years and done really well, especially at the Olympic and at FIFA level and at the international level, has done so well and dominated in some ways more than even the men's leagues in America have when it comes to performance and to outcomes and being at that elite level where they're playing at a national or international stage. Then we look at women's basketball, which has done well but struggled in some places when it comes to placement and getting the exposure, done well in crowd and audience turnout, but has struggled to get that national attention on television. And I feel like, and I'm ignorant in this space, so I'll just be honest about that. It's not a space that I know super well. It seems like that's been one of the biggest hangups with women's football, is getting the same kind of exposure on television to get seen at a in the living rooms. And especially in a COVID world, I think we're experiencing that more and more, that we have to figure out how we're delivering. And I hate to boil it down to this, but the content of what you're creating, which is the football game itself, that exposure on television. So what is it that we need to be doing in the world of media to better position women's sports, and especially the world of women's football? How can we position that better so it's more available to the world, to the consumer, to the fan, where, men's football obviously dominates so many different networks. I can't think of the last time I saw a women's football league game on TV.
Right. Well, you haven't. The most recent representation of women's tackle football was a documentary called Born to Play that aired on ESPN this summer. And the documentary actually focused on my team, the Boston Renegades, during our 2018 championship season. So to answer your question, which is very loaded, the solution not so complex, but it does take discipline in its execution. And I think the biggest thing I tell people is, first and foremost, we are in a microwave society where if it doesn't happen tomorrow, then we just give up and it's not supposed to happen.
Right.
But if you think about it, men's tackle, I believe men were playing tackle, from the early 1900s. Then you finally have two developed leagues in upwards of the 1960s. Then they combined, and then from the 70s up until now, you have this, monolith, this gargantuan league that generates billions of dollars. But that did not happen overnight. We're talking about, 50 years of football being positioned as America's sport, and people being able to identify with players and, just create emotional connections with teams. And you have parents passing on their love for, say, the Eagles to their children. And so it was built into the culture. That did not happen in one day. In the same respect, women's sports need to be allotted a similar amount of time to grow to that level. And in doing so, one of the things that always helps, and the reason why the examples you mentioned, such as women's basketball and women's soccer, is that when you have sports available to women at the collegiate level, that's a huge step in getting little girls to say, oh, I can move forward in soccer because I can not only play soccer in high school and college, but there's a shot that I could get a college scholarship in soccer to play. And so now you have that added incentive. And I'm so happy to say that as of 2021, the NAIA, which is the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, they have sanctioned girls flag football as a varsity sport.
Oh, wow.
So now we will have girls, young women, being able to play flag football at the collegiate level and actually receiving scholarships for that. So that's one avenue that can help improve the proliferation of football amongst girls and women. And then the other aspect you mentioned was the international aspect, the international realm of sports when it comes to women. For instance, the Olympics is huge. If we're talking about hockey, right? Ice hockey for women. That was huge because you had multiple countries around the world who their men were already playing ice hockey. So they're like, oh, our women can play too. We can sanction it as an Olympic sport. And now you create a goal. The pipeline comes when there's some ultimate high level goal for girls to participate in as they grow into women. And in the same respects, when flag football becomes an Olympic sport, which it is en route to becoming, that will be a huge trigger. It will, I think it'll be a tremendous catalyst in getting more girls and women involved in playing football.
And I think that's one of, I think you've hit something really significant, not just for women's football, but for our society right now, which is we feel like success should come because we do something. And that sense of maturing and building, you look at the system for men's football. You start at the Pee Wee leagues, the whole way through college into the pro space. There is a system of raising up players. And the NFL is really integrated into that whole system of making sure that mechanism is in place. They have their players going out and working with high school students and with kids and doing these different programs. I'm going to ask a dangerous question, and hopefully it's not one that is unfair to ask of you, but I think it's an important one.
Go for it, Mike.
Why isn't the NFL doing more for the women's space?
Okay, so I think what we're about to see is the NFL doing a lot more for the women's space. I think it comes down to not just the NFL, but if you're working in any industry that has had success in operating in a certain lane, then it's just easier to stay in that lane because that's what you know.
Yeah.
We're comfortable with this. As you said, we've developed, we spent decades developing a pipeline, a system that grabs boys when they're 6, 7 years old and grooms them and matures them and provides them with opportunities to have success at the highest level. And when you've put in that much work, it's not necessarily so easy to shift, even though the world around you is changing. So I think what we're about to see is a major shift in how the NFL will be approaching female participation in the sport of football. I think it started with, you saw that as more women became engaged in the game and more women started tuning in and buying tickets to attend games at stadiums, that was reflected in, okay, we've got more vibrant apparel. So now you can get a jersey in pink, although I would never wear a pink jersey, right? But you can get a jersey in pink. You can get a more feminine style cut shirt or jersey, something that you can look cute in. It's great. I love that. And I think, again, the NFL is a business. And so they said, oh, wow, our fan base is changing. The demographic is shifting. We're becoming about 45% female viewership. And we need to adjust to that. So I think the natural evolution in this is for the NFL to say, okay, now it's not just that we have women and girls viewing, but now some of these women and girls actually want to play. So what can we do to create opportunities to bring them into this space?
Yeah.
And I'm envisioning, I've had some conversations with NFL teams, and I can speak with 100% certainty that girls' participation in football is at the top of their list. It is high on their radar.
You mentioned earlier about the desire of seeing the two leagues do what the NFL did back in the 60s and combine to create one. Maybe it's a West Coast to East Coast league where, national American football leagues, all of that. What do you think the viability of that actually happening is? Are there conversations to say, we can do this better together? We don't have to do this as two leagues competing. We can maximize our resources. We can build a bigger network of teams. We can be more competitive because we have more diversity of background. And do you see that as a really true option for women's football, or is that something that's more of a dream at this state?
I think it's definitely a true option, and I think it is inevitable.
Mm.
And what happens, again, we can look at this with the AFL and the NFL for men.
Yeah.
It's a matter of meshing two different products into one. And that can unfortunately take some time. People have to come into agreement on, what number of teams are we going to have? Will there be kind of like in Major League Baseball, you're going to have a major league where these teams have the highest product level, they've got the most elite athletes, and then you have a minor league where you start developing other teams in different markets.
Yeah.
Is it going to be that way? Will it just be 2 tiers or 3 tiers? There's so many decisions that need to be made in terms of structuring a unified league, and that does take time. If you want to put something together that will continue to grow and that will continue to be, a hallmark of what women in football can do.
Yeah, giving it that time, as you said, to mature also takes time to make wise business decisions. And as we pivot into the next segment of this show, we're going to be talking about the business of what you're doing in entrepreneurship. But as we wrap up this first segment, there's 3 questions we always ask. The first one being, for you personally, how do you find purpose in what you do?
For me personally, again, I know why God put me here on earth. So I have never been confused about my purpose since I was little. And it just took growing up and exposure and education and life experiences for me to know that I serve my purpose in education, sports, and entertainment. Those are my 3 areas.
Entertainment, sports, and education.
Yes.
I find that really cool as the combination of that. We'll talk more about that in a moment. The next question is, what is one challenge you're currently working to overcome?
Oh, boy. Great question. It really is coming down to access to capital.
Okay.
And not to just, I don't want to drone on or beat a dead horse about the difficulties in women securing capital for ventures and people of color getting access to capital, but it is true. Mm-hmm. And it is quite the hurdle to overcome in terms of, it's a matter of whether or not someone views you and is willing to bank on you and give you a shot because they see you have potential versus what I think women and people of color, the bucket we often fall into is, well, we only want to bank on you based on past performance. Mm. So it's not about potential. It's about what have you done lately?
Wow.
And that's that chicken and egg situation. It's hard to show track record when I can't get access to resources and tools to actually build the great ideas that I have.
Yeah.
So I am navigating that space right now. And it's been difficult.
And what's the next big dream, goal, or idea that you're working on?
At this moment, it is the digital version of Blitz Champs. And we haven't even spoken about the physical card game, Blitz Champs, but that's the next big thing, is to take my amazing football card game and make it more accessible and scalable to people around the world.
Well, with that, we're going to take a break here, but when we come back, we're talking Blitz Champs. We're talking about business and a bunch more really cool, important conversations. We'll be right back. I want to create a better show for you, but to do that, I need to hear from you. Our passion is to help you chase those dreams, to turn those ideas into reality, to be challenged, to be encouraged, to be resourced, to make those dreams and ideas become a reality. But to do that and to create a better show for you, I need to hear from you. I would love if you would drop me an email. It doesn't have to be long. Tell us what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show, what kind of things you would like to hear about, what kind of guests you would like to see on the show. Drop it at hello@jumblethink.com. That's hello@jumblethink.com. Or head on over to Facebook and drop me a DM. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to create a better show for you. And I'd love to encourage you on that journey of chasing your ideas and dreams. So drop us that note right now, and let's start doing this journey of chasing dreams and ideas together. Now let's continue the conversation with today's guest, Adrienne Smith. We are back with Adrienne Smith. Before we dive back into the conversation, there is a massively significant question I haven't asked yet. How can people find and connect with you and what you are doing?
Okay, you can find me. This is my handle for everything in life. Adrienne the 10. So ADRIENNETHE10. My jersey number in football for all the teams that I've ever played on forever is jersey number 10. So I'm Adrienne the 10. So that's adriennethe10.com, on Instagram, Twitter, Adrienne the 10. That's the best way.
And we're going to do it a little bit even easier for you listening. Wherever you're listening, in the episode notes, it's right there. Just click it. It will take you right to Adrienne, right to where you can connect, where you can get involved and learn more about all she is doing. Now, I'm super excited to talk about Blitz Champs, but there's one other thing I want to talk about before we dive into that, and that's you've mentioned the importance of faith in your journey. I started out my life in business, well, not business, but in the world of adult life as a pastor. And so for me, faith is really significant. And it amazes me whether a person is a faith person or not. So often they use the terminology of like, I am tapping into what I was created to do. And so I find that really fascinating. For you, how has faith defined your journey? It seems like you are a person filled with fervor to keep going when adversity hits. And I think a lot of people, when they face obstacles, they recoil into themselves and they give up. And yet you keep pushing forward. I mean, Columbia, that is to get an MBA. I think that's what you got, right? An MBA
Yes.
from Columbia. That's not a slouch MBA. That is, you're doing the work. And so you face the hard things, and it seems like faith is a defining factor for that.
Yes, absolutely. And Mike, I had no idea that you started out as a pastor. You're going to love the story I tell you about how I created Blitz Champs. But to answer your question, faith for me is everything. As I said before, I'm fortunate enough to be one of those people where I was never confused about whether or not God existed. From my earliest memories, like my earliest memories when I was 3 years old, I just always knew God was.
Wow.
That was period. And I always knew I had some big things to accomplish on planet Earth. So I never wavered from that. And that was, it doesn't get any more pure than when you're a kid and you always just know that there's this presence and that you have a purpose. So growing up, as I got older, as I studied more and learned more, that's where the decision making came in terms of, well, I know I have this purpose, but in what realm am I supposed to operate? And that's where education came in. Both of my parents were teachers. That's how they met. And that's where sports came in. I always loved sports. My dad was an avid tennis player, but I was the only child. I wanted friends. So I wanted team sports. So I started softball in third grade and basketball in ninth grade. And then lastly, the entertainment. I love storytelling. I love movies. I love writing. I love reading. So I knew those were my three realms through which I was supposed to achieve my purpose and do what God put me on the earth to do. As for adversity, if I did not have that firm belief in God putting a purpose on my life, I would not be here right now. Wow. I lost my mother in 2005. I lost my father in 2013. And I have lost so many family members. I have lost a loved one every year since 2005, and wow. Sometimes multiple.
Wow.
And no one's dying of old age. Wow. That's the hard part. So if I did not believe in God, I just wouldn't have the strength. I wouldn't. And the reason why I'm talking to you today, the reason why I still get up every day and choose to move forward, and it is a choice. And I tell people who are struggling with things, sometimes the choice is to just get out of bed, go get some water, and go back to bed.
Wow.
And I've been there. I have been there where my achievement for the day was I brushed my teeth.
Wow.
And I didn't eat. I just brushed my teeth because that's all I could do. So yeah, there have been some lows.
Wow. We're going to go ahead and pivot. That is a powerful story. And we could probably spend hours just unpacking those stories because there's richness in, I think sometimes we discredit suffering and the power it brings for our lives, for us to fully be refined into who we're supposed to be. And that suffering, while painful, can be a point which actually leads us to healing. And I think that often we run from the hard things. We often, whether it's adversity or pain or fear or death, there are a lot of things in humanity we run from because it's hard. And I admire that about your story, that in that hardship, you still choose to push through the pain to get to the place of healing, to get to the place of finding purpose, of finding fulfillment, of finding the fullness of life. And I think that it's easy, especially in our world with COVID, with political, with Black Lives Matter, with all of these different things going on, to say we live in an incredibly dark time and there's no hope. But it's in that despair that we can find the fullness of the light of hope to move forward.
Agreed. I agree with that. And an analogy that I often give to people just to kind of make this concept a little more tangible is when I'm in the gym working out, like I'm getting ready for my football season. Okay, I don't like working out. It's not fun. Okay, it's like for me, it's not. It's like eating vegetables. Do I want to eat vegetables? No, I want to eat pepperoni pizza. Okay, that's what I want to eat, and Reese's peanut butter cups. But I eat the vegetables because I know the vegetables are going to help me succeed.
Yeah.
When I'm in the gym pushing weight and my muscles are burning, because why are they burning? Because you are literally ripping your muscles apart, these micro tears. And by tearing them apart, you actually build them up.
Yeah.
Now, do I love scoring touchdowns? Heck yeah. I'm always like, give me the ball, coach. We need a touchdown. Just throw it my way. Let's go. What are we waiting for? You know, I'm number 10. Let's do it. So I love that part, but I don't like necessarily the training that has to go into it. And so it's that balance. It's the same thing in life and in business. Things are tough, but you, as you said, you suffer, you push through that because it is strengthening you for that success that you want to achieve.
Speaking of things that you are starting and the successes that you're moving towards, let's talk about Blitz Champs. What is it, and what was the dream behind it?
Blitz Champs is an amazing football card game. It is, think about it as the football version of Uno. Okay, so it's super easy to learn. Takes about 2 minutes to learn. And it's perfect for ages 7 and up. So kids can play it with their friends, parents, grandparents, the whole family can get in on the action. And it has the added bonus of reinforcing math skills and critical thinking skills for children in grades 3 through 8. So I invented Blitz Champs in December 2015. And here's the story you're going to love, Mike.
Okay.
So as an entrepreneur in 2013, I actually started a company called Gridiron Queendom.
Okay.
And I started Gridiron Queendom to support women and girls around the world who play football, whether it's tackle football or flag football. So 2 years in, I'm like, all right, Lord, I know I'm in my purpose. I've created this awesome community, this online space, this Instagram, community where women and girls can see representation of themselves and gain strength from seeing other girls being successful and trying football, etc. But I said, all right, it's been 2 years and I'm putting all this money in and my sweat equity. We need something. Like, where is this manna from heaven? And I said, when I'm praying, and this is how I pray to God, I'm like, Lord, look, the funds are running low. we need something to be on and popping here.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what would be great, God? What if we had a game? What if we had like a game that was like the football version of Uno? And so I went to sleep, Mike. I woke up the next morning, bam, Blitz Champs. I kid you not. I just wrote everything down. The mechanics of the game were in my head, one fell swoop. And I ended up testing it right away when I went to visit some family for Christmas. And I'm not an artist. If I had not been cute, I would not have graduated from kindergarten. But thank goodness I was cute with a little personality. So my teacher moved me on to first grade because my arts and craft skills were sorry. So I went on Google Clip Art. I printed out some images of what I thought the cards would look like eventually. I taped that onto index cards and I played the game with my family. I introduced them to it, explained the rules, and they loved it. And it went from my baby cousin, who was a senior in high school at the time, he was the man on the football team, to my aunt, who just was like, football, what's that? And my cousin, who was more concerned with shopping, and the whole family loved it. And my aunt was actually the first ever winner of a Blitz Champs game. Mm. So from there to all of 2016, I leaned heavily on my Columbia Business School network to develop the game, to find a phenomenal illustrator, and to do research in terms of manufacturing, production, etc. And in 2017, we went to market, and it's been a fun journey ever since.
Wow. It seems to marry those three areas: sports, education, and entertainment. But the foundation of it seems to be learning along the way, that it's a teaching tool. So often we make learning really boring. And I love the world of education. My mom worked for a pretty awesome college in the dean's office, and so education is pretty significant to me. But I have to say, our system's not doing a good job of making education fun and enjoyable. It is all about, I'm going to tell you things and you should learn it. This is more experiential. This is more about like practical skills in a learning capacity. So, you have that moment where you're like, God, I need something. And what about like Uno with this kind of concept and all of that? As you processed through that idea, as you created the prototype and everything, what was the forefront? Was this like, hey, this is going to be a fun game that brings exposure to us, that helps us to position so that we can do our mission of what we're trying to create here? Or was it more of like, hey, I want to use this as a tool to teach? What was that driving force, and how did those three elements, sports, entertainment, and education, really marry together to become something that is much more robust?
Right. That's a great question. And for me, it really was, I wanted to replicate the fun and excitement and the competition of playing football in a card game.
Okay.
So that was it. And so it was like, I just want something that's football related and that's fun and that simulates what it's like to play football. But it needs to be able to come in like a nice, cool, tiny package.
Yeah.
So that it can be experienced everywhere, and you don't necessarily need 22 people, 11 aside to play it. Right? You play with 2 people or up to 6, and that's what it was. And I found that I like to call it edutainment. Right. So I combine education with entertainment. That's my word, edutainment. I also, in 2006, I launched another company called Harlem Hip Hop Tours.
Oh, cool.
And we provide edutainment field trips. So that's it. Again, it's going back to my core worlds of education, entertainment, and sports. So when I wrote down the rules for Blitz Champs, and I made a very, very initial prototype of cutting index cards and just writing the function of each card, and I played it, I said, oh, wait, yeah, this is fun just because it's fun. But then I said, you actually have to use math in order to keep track of who's the first player to score 21 or more points. And then when you when you use, so the green cards are the offensive cards, and that's what you use to score points. Then you have red cards, which are defensive cards. Red means stop. So you use the defensive cards to remove points from your opponents. And then we have yellow cards that are continuation cards that keep the game going. So it's like, skip player, reverse play, things of that nature. But when I played the first game by myself, I was like, wait, kids are going to have to really use mental math skills and critical thinking skills for this game. And I said, oh, now we're onto something. And it goes back to a good check for an entrepreneur as to whether or not you are on the right path for yourself is, does it fall back within that core purpose? And I knew that Blitz Champs did. I was like, this is it. It's edutainment and it's sports. So I'm hitting my big three: education, entertainment, and sports. So I knew, I felt even more emboldened to just be fearless in pursuing the development of the game.
Yeah, one of the things I love about this is that so much of what, I have two kids. I have two girls, one who is 3, who challenges us every day, but we love her. She is awesome. And we have a 7-year-old who just loves to learn, and she loves to sit down and read and everything like that. And so much of what we're allowing our children to consume these days, not as us as a family, but us as a culture, is more of like, hey, you're a burden on us. Go watch your tablet. Go watch YouTube. Go entertain yourself. Go get out of the way. Broad stroke assessment, not fair to put everyone in that bucket, but that seems to be our culture right now, is that we'd rather entertain our kids than really engage our kids. And I think there's a big difference about entertainment versus engagement. One of the things that seems really significant about Blitz Champs is the importance of learning how to play not plugged in.
Right. And that has been a tremendous benefit and selling point for the game, as not only something that's excellent for families to own, because you do have that unplugged playtime and you do have that interaction where people are looking at other people, in their eyes. And especially now during the whole quarantine situation, families are at home. You need more things to do. Blitz Champs is such a great game, and that it's fun. All ages can play it. The kids are learning, but you are able to experience wins and losses. So it's almost like I initially wanted it to be a microcosm of playing the actual sport of football.
Yeah.
And to your question before, unfortunately, yes, it seems that education has almost become synonymous with being dull or, a chore or boring or something we have to do.
Yeah.
And I really lean on and have gratitude for my parents, because learning was fun. My mom, especially in my early childhood years, formative years, it was a challenge. It was a wonderful challenge. She created an environment where learning became a reward in and of itself.
Yeah.
And that right there, you're doing it right. And so when I'm in classrooms, teaching the Blitz Champs math workshop, so I've created a workshop that can be taught in person and online. When I'm in classrooms, obviously pre-COVID, and I'm teaching these kids 3rd through 8th grade about Blitz Champs and my career as a football player and how I invented the game, and then teaching them the rules, I literally can see them advancing as students and as people.
Wow.
And I'll explain that in 2 respects. As students, in that in New York City, the school system here is challenging for a lot of, especially the minority students, right?
Yeah.
So they're not necessarily at the national grade level or math level. And part of that comes from, it's really repetition. Have you been exposed to it? How often have you been exposed to math? And then building confidence in that.
Yeah.
So when I had these kids playing Blitz Champs, and at the end of our 45-minute class time, when they could fluently understand that a field goal, which is 3 points, plus a touchdown, 6 points, equals 9, when they just knew 3 plus 6 equals 9, and it was second nature, they didn't have to think about it, their confidence level shot up. And you could see it happening in a span of 45 minutes because the kids didn't realize they were doing math.
Wow.
They just knew I need to win.
Yeah.
I need to be the first person to score 21 or more points. And if that's, I have 4 field goal cards. The field goal is worth 3 points. So if that's 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 being 12, or some of these kids did it by themselves. They would be, 4 threes equals 12.
Yeah.
They naturally took the next step to multiplication. It was wonderful. So from an educational standpoint, their math skills and their confidence in math skyrocketed. But then also as humans, from a personal standpoint, you could see them believing and understanding that they could be presented with something completely new and master it. And that type of self-awareness and joy is just, it's paramount. It's irreplaceable.
Love that. You mentioned a few times throughout the conversation that you have workshops, you are working on developing online. What's the vision for the future? The card game is awesome, but where are you wanting to take this to the future? What is the vision for next year and the year after that, and how this is going to become much more than a card game? Because it doesn't seem like that's where you want to stop.
You're correct. So I envision Blitz Champs becoming the game of your childhood.
So
if
the Monopoly or Uno of the next generation.
Correct. If you have an Uno deck, then you definitely have a Blitz Champs deck at your house. And not only that, but I foresee Blitz Champs as being a powerful math learning tool for elementary and middle school students. So whether it is physically playing the card game in class, in math class, or the ability to access the game online, digitally, I really foresee Blitz Champs being a tool that can give kids confidence in their math skills. And when you have confidence in your addition, subtraction, and multiplication, it sets you up to pursue and be good. Yeah. To just be good at the higher maths in terms of the algebras, the trigonometries, the calculuses of the world.
A good foundation for the future.
Yes. That's the vision.
I love that. As we close out this segment, remind people how they can find you and connect with Blitz Champs. How can they pick up a deck of these cards?
Blitz Champs is available via Amazon. So just go to blitzchamps.com, click on the Buy Now button, and it will take you straight to our Blitz Champs page. So blitzchampz.com. Go to blitzchamps.com and just click on that Buy Now button. It'll have more information. And also we offer some free workbooks that can be downloaded from the site that complement the game as well.
And here's the deal. If you're listening right now, this is a great Christmas gift. It's Christmas season. If you need that extra little stocking stuffer, you need that a little thing that you go, hey, I want my kids to not just be entertained, but I want them to be educated too. Put this in there, sneak it in, get those kids playing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We get lots of positive responses from customers when their kids or grandkids are opening up a Blitz Champs deck for Christmas. We actually have one review on Amazon that it always tickles me. It's a woman who said, I bought a Blitz Champs deck for my grandson. It was the least expensive gift of everything he received and the one he loved the most. And I'm like, yes, because Blitz Champs is awesome.
Love that. We're going to take a break right here. When we come back, it is the dreaded rapid fire questions. We'll be right back. On Thursday's episode, we have a really killer conversation lined up for you. Our guest is Lauren Swickard. She is an actress, a producer, and a writer. She has a brand new Netflix original film called A California Christmas coming out December 14th. Not only is it a cool movie because who doesn't like an awesome Christmas movie, but it is one of the first movies that went into production under COVID restrictions. We talk about that. We talk about Christmas. We talk about how she acted in this movie with her husband. We talk about the art of writing and some new projects she's working on. It's going to be a great conversation. You're going to want to check that out this Thursday. Now let's jump into rapid fire questions with Adrienne Smith.
Levez seulement le bras pour mettre l'aiguille sur le disque.
We're back with Adrienne. All right. Do you think you can make it through the rapid fire questions?
Yes. If I can play tackle football, I can do anything. Yes.
Yeah, I'll just say this. I wouldn't want to play tackle football against you because you'd cremate me. Every day your team would whoop up on me. It just wouldn't be good. So, as a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Everything.
Everything?
Yes. I wanted to be everything. And I realized the easiest or the best way to be everything was to be an actress. And so that's kind of what led me down that road, because as an actress, you could be a doctor one day, you could be an engineer the next day, you could be a race car driver. So I think I act, but then if I had known the word entrepreneur, that's pretty much synonymous with everything.
Well, we didn't ask and talk about this much, so I want to take 30 seconds. What was your experience like working on Orange is the New Black?
Oh. Orange is the New Black. It's an amazing show, and it was amazing behind the scenes. We were like a family, and I was a core inmate from the end of season 1 all the way through season 5, and I'm still really good friends with a lot of the other actresses who are on the show. We're like our own Orange family. I say that 5 times.
I'll make it through twice. Well, I'm going to ask this question. Give us one little nugget of trivia that we can take and play in a game about Orange is the New Black that most people wouldn't know.
Oh my gosh, trivia. I have no idea, Mike. Let's see. Okay. So part of the show was shot in studios in, where was it? Long Island City. Yeah. Silver Cup Studios, I think. But then the other part, and again, in seasons 1 through 5, was actually shot in upstate New York at a facility that was a former psych ward for kids.
Whoa.
It was spooky. And one of the background actresses, I don't know where she got this, Mike. I have no idea. But she had some app on her phone that could detect ghosts or something. But where did she even, I have no idea. But sure enough, she's walking around like some of the hallways. I mean, it was a really creepy place. And it would go off, like the app would start lighting up. And, so people said they had heard voices and things. You just never really wanted to walk around by yourself. So we always would go like in pairs wherever we had to go.
Yeah. That doesn't add to the creepy factor to have your phone start going off, going, something's not right here. You might want to keep moving.
Right. And we told her, it was like, look, you just turn the app off, delete it from your phone. We don't need to know. We all feel that there are other presences here. We understand. Let's just get focused and, let's get through the scene.
We want to get out of here. We don't want to be here. Sounds like a really fun experience, though.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. It was almost akin to, going to college or, being part of a championship sports team.
What is one tip you'd give someone with a big idea or dream and they don't know where to start?
Write it down.
Yeah.
Write it down. That's the first step. Just write it down. Well, I don't have a computer. I don't care. Write it on the back of toilet paper. Just write it down.
I love that. And we were talking beforehand about us both having notebooks and taking notes and everything like that. And so that's a great habit. Just, I have a notebook that is just filled with ideas, and 99.999% of them are throwaway ideas, but it's just constantly, working that idea muscle.
Absolutely. And it's one of my mom gave me so much great advice when she was raising me, but I specifically remember her saying, I think I was in maybe high school or maybe sophomore year of college. She told me, Adrienne, write all of your ideas down. Keep them in notebooks because you're going to need them in the future.
Wow.
And, sometimes when you have that moment, and I don't know if you felt this before, but I understand and recognize this feeling when someone says something to you and you need to pay attention and process that because it's the absolute truth.
Yeah.
And she's right. I have notebooks dating back from 20 years. Wow. With just ideas for TV shows, for movies, anything and everything. So yes, write it down.
What is one change you would like to see in the world?
I just started reading this book called Caste, C-A-S-T-E,
okay,
by Isabel Wilkerson. I think I have the author's name correct. And it is mind-blowing.
Wow.
She breaks down what the caste system is, what a caste structure is, and how it has been playing out in India, in the United States of America, and how the caste structure was used to help the Nazis take over and, just create devastation amongst the Jews. And it's interesting because I used to live in Japan, and there is a caste structure there. Mm-hmm. And it's this book crystallizes the essence of what a caste system is, and you can see that it's the blueprint of so much misery and oppression throughout every corner of the globe. And so if I had one wish, you know what? I'm me, so I'm asking for two because that's how I am. my first wish is for everyone to read Caste. I want it to become mandatory, a mandatory book that all ninth graders in the United States have to read. And secondly, I wish that the caste system is destroyed throughout the planet.
I have not read that book, although it sounds fascinating, so I'll have to definitely pick it up. I think that sometimes we're removed from thinking about these things, whether it's a caste system, whether it's about race, whether it's about gender, whether it's about economics. We don't engage ourselves with these thoughts, and the ignorance causes us to have indifference that we could be changing how things work if we just took the time to inform ourselves.
Yes, and I think it's when you're saying we, I'm not sure which we you're speaking about, because for me, it's every day. Like there isn't a day that goes by where I don't have to consider race or gender.
Yeah.
So as we mentioned before, one of the greatest challenges I'm facing is securing capital. If it's any endeavor that I'm attempting to do in the business world, whatever I say or do is coming out of the uniform that I'm wearing. Chocolate woman. So regardless of what it is I'm talking about, whoever I have to speak to in order to present the idea, they are viewing me wearing my uniform. And based on that, biases inherently exist. Mm-hmm. So for me, there's just not a moment where I am not thinking about trying to work around or obfuscate or just deal with the caste system in some format.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, taking that one step forward, you mentioned bias there. And I think we live in a society that has embraced bias as fact instead of embracing bias as perspective. And in that, the more we're aware of our bias, the media, whether it's Fox News or CNN, there's inherent bias built into how they present the news. And that news story, that story that they're communicating is through a biased lens. And I think that the danger of the story of my truth is that sometimes we move that into absolute truth. And we stop actually being able to have conversations with people that are different than us to allow our biases to be redefined, to be reinformed, to be changed. And I think that we are in a dangerous place in society where bias becomes our baseline, where it becomes our everything, where we cling so much onto bias as truth that it defines us at a deeper level that is dangerous. And I don't think bias is inherently bad. I think it's a place that if we understand our bias, we can change it, we can grow from it, we can evolve it, we can have dialogues that are honest, transparent, and true that inform us and create new perceptions, new understanding. And I think that that's one of the places that we're in right now, where conversations like ours, where I can see, and we were saying this offline, I think, was, conversations like ours, I love having because it informs me from a perspective that I don't understand, because I don't experience it. But by experiencing your story, I can then say, this is a new perspective that I can filter my understanding through so I can move forward. So when you talk about this caste system, I think that when you mention, like, I don't know the we that you're informing, I think it's humanity. All of us need to be more aware of these things so that we can start having conversations like we're having, so that we can then change that. And I think that that's the we, so that I can learn from you, so I can experience your story, not in a very personal way, but from an understanding of your story, so that I can then say, this is a perception I've not entertained before. So now I've experienced, I never even thought about. Here I look at you, the way I view you. The skin, the uniform that you wear, as you put it. I view you as highly successful, as incredibly brilliant. As a person that I see so much potential in what you're building. And to hear, like, I go to get funding and I'm viewed as a woman who's Black, who maybe not a huge track record in entrepreneurship when it comes to the proof that they want to see to invest in you. And I wish that those people would be able to see you as I see you, so that they could invest in the potential of who you are because of the brilliance and success and the risk and the reward and the hard work that you've put in, so that you could get these dreams and ideas that you have into a place that it actually touches the lives that you're wanting to impact.
Yes, and the quickest way to get to what you're talking about, to remove bias, is through education. Mm-hmm. And that's why I mentioned that if caste were mandatory reading for ninth graders, and I say that because it is more of a complex book. We need to have the kids to have a certain understanding of the world and the English language. But if you are able to educate people about what really happened, mm-hmm. then the biases that exist would have to go away, because we would all be standing on and looking at the same truth. The issue right now is that a certain version has been propagated, and that everyone's operating off of this warped version. And so then you get these biases that have no merit whatsoever. Yeah. But if you've been indoctrinated in a particular version of a certain group being more successful at everything it is, no matter what it is, because they are inherently who they are, then anyone outside of that group who tries to present a new concept or who themselves is just different is immediately dismissed, because your doctrine states no. Mm. They have to play this role in the caste.
Yeah.
They come at the end of the alphabet because that's what they do.
Yeah.
We come at the beginning of the alphabet because that's who we are and what we do. Mm. But education can knock that out. It can just be removed.
Yeah. Love that. What do you want your legacy to be?
I created a verb for it. Well, it's a word that exists, but here's my definition of it.
Okay.
I'm here to empire, which means to empower and to inspire.
Love that.
So my legacy is Adrienne Smith empired the world.
I love that. That may be the best answer I've ever had to that question.
Well, I always try to be the best, Mike, so.
Where do you find inspiration?
From the Bible. Mm-hmm. There's some amazing accounts of tremendous feats in the Bible. From nature. I live in a 5th floor walk up, and right outside of my window, every year there's this little plant, like this little twig. I don't know where the seed came from. Where did this seed from somewhere come from? And how is it growing in the brick and the mortar that's on the outside of my window? But every year without fail, when spring comes around, this little twig somehow sprouts some leaves. And I look at that twig and I'm like that twig. You know, it's against all odds. There is no soil around here. Where is this plant drawing its nutrients from? I didn't know that the mortar in between the brick clearly there's something going on. Yes, it rains, so the rain can water the little twig. But yeah, there are so many components of nature that spark ideas for me, that provide beauty. It's fall now, so I've finally come to the conclusion that trees that turn yellow are my favorite trees.
Wow.
And I wasn't sure because I didn't want to say, well, I don't like the red ones or I don't like the orange ones. But no, I've this year I was like, I've decided it's yellow.
Wow. That's a question. You know, there are things that you take away from these conversations. You know, I love fall. It's my favorite season of the year. Once you hit Halloween, the whole way through the first week of January, it's like my favorite time of the year. Mm-hmm. And I love the changing of the leaves. I lived in California for 13 years, and they say they have a fall. They don't have a fall.
They don't have a fall.
They don't know what they're talking about. And so I've never thought of that, though. Like that simple question of which one's my favorite? I'm like, and you saying that, I'm like, probably orange, strangely. But I was like, it's an interesting thing. Sometimes there are simple questions that we just never think about, like that one, that are so powerful. It's about perspective and understanding perspective. What is one book you think every dreamer should read?
A Wrinkle in Time. That book for me was, I think I read it in 6th grade.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing. To me, the concept that, because, you know, I have my right brain and left brain, right? But my right brain says, you know, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Rah, 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 right? Physics, all of that. Yes. But when I read that book and the concept was, no, the shortest distance between 2 points is a wrinkle. And I remember taking a sheet of paper out, drawing a straight line, you know, as best I could, because again, I would not have made it out of kindergarten if I hadn't been cute and well styled. So with my low budget drawing skills, I made a crooked straight line. And then I remember squishing the paper up so that I wrinkled it. And sure enough, the wrinkle made that straight line even shorter. And it just blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, the possibilities in life are endless. So it was always a momentous book for me.
For you personally, how do you define success?
Knowing your purpose in life and fulfilling it. That's it. It's yes, money's great. No one's saying no to money. Yes, I like money too. But in my life, when I lived in Japan, and part of my job there was to visit schools and teach about American culture, I remember that it was my first time, you know, as an adult, my first job out of college, where I got so much reward, this rewarding feeling of imparting knowledge and interacting with these kids. And I'm like, what is this? It's not like, I feel as if I just made $1 million, and I didn't. And it was the first time where I realized, oh, there are some things that money cannot replicate. There are some rewards that can only be experienced by what you are depositing into another person in regards of time spent or knowledge given. So for me, success is knowing your purpose in life. Why are you on planet Earth, and fulfilling that purpose?
What is one trend you're currently excited about?
Oh, I feel like I should have a really good answer for this. I am super excited about this. I love all of the fantastic television programming that is out and about because of all the streaming services that exist, and they need content.
Yeah.
So I feel as if like it's the visual library is now open, and you've got shows on Netflix such as the Queen's Gambit.
Mm-hmm.
I just finished watching Raised by Wolves, which I think was on Amazon. There's just so much good writing and acting and just creativity out there that I'm super geeked. I'm so happy.
What is one thing you wish you would have known when you first started out?
I don't like this question. People ask me that. I don't like this question because I don't have the answer to that yet. I don't. I'm still in progress, and the only thing I can tell myself now that I didn't before is it's going to be much, 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 much harder than you thought. Just much. It's just going to seem impossible.
If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what do you think you'd be doing?
What I'm doing today.
There is no other option.
What would I be doing? What else? I do everything. So what else is there left not to do?
And our final rapid fire question is, what is one dream you are still wanting to fulfill in your own life?
I have a lot. So fishing on the Great Barrier Reef, and I want to surf in a barrel. Like I want to get to the level of surfing where I can just make it through a barrel. Yeah.
We always like to leave our guests have a final thought. What would you like to share with everyone listening right now?
If you're listening and you have a dream or a desire, and you've been afraid to go after it, or someone's or a bunch of someone's have told you it's not possible or you can't do it, I want you to do it for me. I want you to pursue it for me. If someone says, Jim, you can't do it, or Sally, you're not good enough, I want you to say, Adrienne said I am. And I want you to do it for me.
I'm so excited to be watching your journey, and I'm just so thankful for you taking time out to share that story, to share your story, to challenge us to think, to challenge us to go further. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mike. And I definitely want to come back and chat again, too.
Once again, I want to thank Adrienne for taking time out and joining us on the show today. What an inspiration her story is about taking risks, stepping out, going after your dreams, and really building the spaces that you are called to create. Make sure to go check out what Adrienne's building, whether it's on football and education, or especially with those playing cards, Blitz Champs. Really cool stuff. Go get a pack of those cards. Go support what she's building and doing. And I want to thank you for tuning into today's show here at Jumble Think. We do this show for you. We hope that it is an encouragement, a challenge, a call for you to step into that unknown, just like Adrienne did, to step into something that you may not even know it exists, and to build that space to fulfill the dreams, to fulfill the calling inside of you. But to do that, you have to take a risk. So that's my challenge for you today, to get out there, to dream big, and to change the world around you.
Tout ce qui peut vous gêner ou tirer votre attention. Cherchez la meilleure position. Les bras et les jambes légèrement espacés. Étirez-vous doucement, mais complètement. En avant, en arrière, sur les côtés. Vous êtes une autre personne. Les mères de famille, les enfants, peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant. Dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps, vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.